Now, my first guest today has been described as one of the more influential Nigerians of his generation, having been a governorship candidate twice in Rivers State, first in 2007 under Action Congress and again in 2015 under the Labour Party. He's also been a member of the People's Democratic Party, or PDP, and more recently the ruling All Progressives Congress, or APC. But in July, he resigned from the APC over its choice of a Muslim ticket for the 2023 presidential election, something he saw as a political mistake in a country as religiously polarized as Nigeria. So he decided to quit on what he said were grounds of principle. But he's getting on with his other pursuits as a businessman, movie producer and philanthropist, whose work amongst Nigeria's disaffected youths through his Princewill Trust has earned him the respect and admiration of many. And the businessman, politician and philanthropist Tonye Princewill joins me now in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Let's start with the APC's choice of a same-faith ticket. You resigned from the party in protest, and this is the first time, I believe, that you're going on television to talk about it. Have your feelings changed at all since you made that move in July, I believe?
Absolutely not. I did it instinctively. It's happened before where I took a position. I didn't discuss it with many people. In fact, I probably didn't discuss it with anyone. But I knew deep down inside of me that it was a wrong decision. I couldn't stand for it, so I took it. I was obviously pleasantly surprised by the amount of positive feedback I got from it, but I took that position purely out of instinct. I know what's right, I know what's wrong. I don't begrudge anyone who thinks that the decision is a right decision, but you know, it's not up for debate. For me, I know it's wrong, and I stand by that position. I will continue to do so. And
that was a stand on principle, because you say instinct. I mean, it was instinctive, which suggests a rather sort of sudden decision.
Yeah, principle.
Right. But the APC seems to have come back together in spite of the deep chasm created by that Muslim ticket. I mean, you know, they appear to have united around their candidate and his running mate and are getting on with the campaign.
Well, you know, good luck to them. You know, he could win. Tinubu could win. It's not impossible. But even if he won, I wouldn't want to be part of that kind of a victory. You know, everyone to their tents, and whatever is comfortable with you, you stick with. But I'm clearly not comfortable with Muslim ticket. I think it's not just about me and my position, but it's the position that it reflects for those northern Christians. It's the position it reflects for those who understand the sensitivities of religion. I mean, I'm not making my choice based on religion, but religion is important. And if you disregard religion, then it means you're not adjusting yourselves to the sensitivities of the people. And I've always said it, that we're here to serve. We're here for people. And so if people's sensitivities are insignificant, then I have a problem with that.
And I don't know, you talked about the problem for Christians and so on. I don't know what you make of some of the Christian members of the APC and who are said to be joining forces with Muslims in the north, and some pretty powerful people, former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, you know, Babachir Lawal and all the rest of them getting together with other Muslims and saying that with other Christians and Muslims, and saying that they're aiming to pick a consensus candidate with the aim of defeating that Muslim ticket.
Look, I think it's good politics, but sometimes things are bigger than politics. Like I said, it's all about principle. If the position I was taking left me isolated, I'd be glad with it. I would not be bothered by being isolated if I felt I was doing the right thing. So it's good to be doing the right thing and finding out that there's a consensus that is building around that position. I think it's a big mistake made by APC. I am surprised that the ruling party would take such a decision, but they have. And when I resigned, I didn't resign because I wanted them to change that decision. I resigned because I wanted to be disassociated with that decision. I didn't want to be in any way linked to a decision like that. I think posterity will ultimately speak well of the decisions we've taken, but ultimately I've taken my position, and like I said, I stand by it.
So if it wasn't for a Muslim ticket, you'd still be in the APC, wouldn't you?
Definitely. I mean, I would have still been in the APC if not for it. I mean, let's not make any bones about it. APC has had a disastrous few years. I would have loved to have said that APC was fantastic other than the Muslim ticket, but it's not. But we stuck with it. We're not quitters. We ultimately wanted to stick with the party and try and see and hope for something better. Tinubu as an individual is a great guy. I like him. I've worked very closely with him before. He's very intelligent, and you know, I see people lobbying abuse and talking about his health and all those kind of things. Well, health is an issue, there's no doubt about it, but health was Buhari's issue, and people were thinking about Buhari not surviving. He's not only survived 8 years, he's thrived over the 8 years. So health an issue, age an issue, lots of issues, but the ultimate straw that broke the camel's back was the issue of the Muslim ticket. Right. That was just a line that I just could not go beyond.
But I mean, when you talk about yourself and people perceive you as being a principled politician, and you say that you admit that the APC has had a disastrous few years in terms of the quality of its governance and the perception around it. I mean, that suggests that but you were prepared to stick with it. I mean, that suggests that the sort of damage that the APC government is perceived to have done to the economy with regard to things like security and to the unity of this country, part of which is why you've decided to leave. I mean, the religious disunity, disharmony that's created, that you don't really have any problems with that.
Look, unfortunately in politics, sometimes you are talking about the lesser of evils as opposed to angels. I like the way Biden put it. He said, don't compare me with the Almighty, compare me with the alternative. So if you're looking at APC, you're looking not just at APC, but what is the alternative to APC? So like I am now, I've left APC, but to where? So if you're playing politics, you do have to ultimately take a position. And, you know, my position was APC, but when they got to that line that it was indefensible, obviously I had to make a very clear decision that I had to leave. That was just one line I couldn't cross. But, you know, PDP has had its own issues. PDP was a disaster as well before APC took over. So you look at these alternatives and you ask yourself, well, what choice do I want to make? And the choice I've decided to take is let's forget parties, let's focus on candidates. Because parties, you know, they've been a bit of a disappointment.
Well, I was coming to that because I was going to ask you, which of course a lot of people I'm sure have been asking you, and there have been questions also raised in the media and so on, because you're obviously quite an important person in Nigerian politics. Having left the APC, which party do you think you might? You just said you're not interested in parties anymore, because, I mean, you've been a member of the PDP.
I've been a member of PDP, I've been a member
You've been a member of the Labour Party, you've been a member of the APC, but you are, in terms of party affiliation, politically adrift at the moment. Is that
I wouldn't even use the word political adrift. You see,
in the wilderness?
Well, I'm a citizen.
Yeah.
And as a citizen, I have the freedom to associate as I also have the freedom to dissociate. And what I've done now basically is say, all right, let's forget parties. Because if I have my own principles and ideals, I have my own ideology, I have the things I stand for, what is important to me, I'm interested in the people, I'm interested in, you know, public relations, I'm interested in the media, I'm interested in the creative industry. I'm interested in philanthropy. I'm interested in, you know, small business. If I cannot find like minds who are interested in those same things and are prepared to put in place policies that reflect those kind of things, then as far as I'm concerned, there's no point associating. So I'm okay. I'm where I am. I'll be looking for candidates that share those ideals, and I'll be supporting candidates that share those ideals. Hopefully at some point in the politics of Nigeria we'll have independent candidates. But until then, I will not join a party where I'm not satisfied with the makeup, the composition, of course, and more importantly, the ideology.
But I'm wondering why that is happening now, because I mean, all along you've been joining parties and
Yes.
you've been running for governor and all that sort of thing under
Absolutely.
different parties.
But
was that
when
a search? Like, is that why you went from one party to the other?
Bottom line at the end of the day with politics is that it's what I love about politics is an opportunity for you to learn, not about just about yourself, but about people. And for me, the most important thing as far as politics is concerned is that you want to make a change, you want to make a difference. And whatever platform you can use to make that difference, of course, is fine. I'm not running for any office at this point. I'm quite happy to be a supporter of a candidate.
Right.
Preferably a party, but I couldn't find a party that I could leave the APC for and think to myself, I'm comfortable. So I'm quite happy being by myself and associating with candidates that have at least share some kind of ideology that I can support.
Well, let's
I've
talk
got to
about
be able to defend the candidate.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if I can't defend the candidate, I can't support him.
Well, let's talk about those candidates on the presidential level.
Or her. Speaking about
Yeah, or her.
candidate,
Yeah.
or her.
Well, I mean, the candidate can be either a man or a woman. But I mean, let's talk about the frontline candidates at the presidential level. Admittedly, they're all men, and you probably know most or all of them personally. Who do you think is the right man for the job of president?
I think it would be foolhardy of me to jump out with that kind of a position at this point.
So you're still being a politician at this stage?
I am a politician. But what I want to say is that it's important that we listen to people, but let's look beyond the individuals. Let's not make the mistake of before. Let's listen to not just the Peter Obis, the Atikus, or the Tinubus. Let's listen to their team. Who is the team? Nigeria is not a one-man show. I don't want to support a Peter Obi and find out that there's nothing around him. I don't want to support an Atiku. Tinubu is out. I'm not supporting Tinubu. So I have a choice between Peter Obi and Atiku, and I'm studying them. I want to hear what they have to say in terms of their manifestos, what's their plan for Nigerians, what's their plan for those areas that I pointed out that are important to me. Because I have people who listen to what I have to say, and I'd expect them to say to me who and why. And I don't want to just tell them who, I want to say to them why this person stands out above the rest. We haven't seen Peter Obi's campaign council. We've been waiting for that. It would be nice to see who is around him, because we don't want a one-man government. We want a system. We want
Absolutely.
a team. And until we hear that, I am not prepared to make a choice.
And you said fairly recently that the APC may in fact gain an advantage with split votes between Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi. Tell us more about that.
Well, it's, I think, aligned to what you hear the Northern Christians and the Muslims saying about building a consensus. For people like me, the choice is really between Peter Obi and Atiku. There are lots of people who would not vote for an APC candidate on principle. And those people broadly have a choice of voting for either PDP, Labour Party, or some other party. What I'm seeing, and this is the troubling fact, is that there's a strong likelihood that where you would not have voted for APC and you would now then have voted for PDP, you've got a choice in voting for Peter Obi. So you're going to have lots of anti-APC candidates who will be splitting themselves across those two parties. And the danger in that, for those of us that don't want to see a Muslim ticket in the villa, is that you'd end up having one of these parties taking off votes from the other, and APCs waltzing themselves into the villa. So I think what those politicians are doing is saying, hey, why don't we all work together and go behind one of the two options. I think that's what they're doing. I haven't spoken to them directly on this. But people have to be wise. Unfortunately, a lot of the young people who are really vibrant about the politics have not taken their time to understand the politics. And what that means basically is it's about numbers. And so if as a group we gather and say this is the direction we're going, it's so much easier than if everybody does what they want to do individually. So that's what I have to say about the split of the votes.
But, well, I mean, actually, you mentioned the youth. You've been a long-time supporter of the youth. You've encouraged young people to become more politically involved. You've supported them through your trust. We'll talk about your trust in a minute. But are you seeing the rise of the youths the way you would like it to be?
Yeah, I am. I'm very impressed with the energy so far. But I'm very conscious that it's not about making a lot of noise. I mean, I see the youth talking about million-man marches and all of that. Look, it's fine, it sounds good, but ultimately many of those people don't have voters' cards. On the day of the election, many of them don't have staying power. I always chide the youth that Nigeria is the only place where you push the youth to the wall, and they ask you how far inside the wall should I go. End SARS was an indicator. They lobbied for SARS to be ended. SARS was ended and they were looking at themselves like, what next? So the young people have energy, but you need the wisdom of the elders. It's not just about the energy. You've got to be able to focus, guide, and cite your objectives. And so with the young people, I'm not seeing a lot of that. With Peter Obi's campaign, I'm worried that I'm not seeing a lot of that kind of focused direction. You need the politicians. Make no mistake about that. As much as people don't like the politicians make things happen. So you need the politicians. There's the wisdom of politics. Politics is a science. It needs to be understood. You need to understand units. You need to understand wards. You need to understand how things will be. The new Electoral Act amendments, what are the implications of that? What are the loopholes? How do they win elections? How do they lose elections? All those things matter. And we've got to go beyond internet and WhatsApp and all that.
Yeah, well, they don't need all that if they just put their support behind a candidate of their choice and simply go and vote for them. I mean, they are members of the electorate. They're not necessarily members of the political structures.
Who is they? When you say they, we're not talking about the youths that are visible. They're youths that are invisible. Are they being reached? Are they part of the conversation? Do they have a meal? Do they have issues? How are their issues being addressed? What about the short-term needs? All those things matter, because at the end of the day, in my rural communities, they don't understand about the internet and WhatsApp. I mean, these guys are looking for how they can just get from today to tomorrow.
Well, in your neighborhood, it would be a million-man swim rather than a million-man march.
Exactly, and that's obviously not going to happen.
In the Niger Delta. But talking about the youths, what about your foundation, the Princewill Trust, which has been doing some work with young people and the Dubai Department of Economy and Tourism?
Oh yeah, so Princewill Trust does a lot of things, but this particular program you're referring to is what we call the Dubai Challenge, where every year, twice a year preferably, depending on how many times we can get it into a year, we set up a challenge. It's River State focused, but I'm thinking of expanding it, making it broader. And the winners of this challenge ultimately get to go to Dubai. Why? Because I went to Dubai several years ago, decades ago, and I have watched the evolution of Dubai, and I've been fascinated by it. And I thought to myself that if only people could see what I saw, feel what I felt, they will understand why I'm so pissed off with what we see going on here in Nigeria. So I made it a point of making sure that young people get the opportunity to see Dubai, get to speak to the people, talk to the people behind this evolution, get to understand why you can go from the desert to Dubai, and then ultimately you can go from tomorrow the Niger Delta to something like it. So I've been doing that, and I'm pleased to say that it's going very well. A lot of bright young people. The challenge is very hard. So when they come through that challenge, I know I've got some really good material. Because I don't want to take people to Dubai and then they say, oh, these are the Nigerians. I don't want to disappoint our guests, our hosts, sorry. And I'm quite happy with the quality of people that we've had going so far, and we're going to continue to do that.
And there's a considerable concern about what's going on in the Niger Delta at the moment with issues around oil theft and, you know, the concerns about the winding down of the amnesty program and so on. What are your thoughts on those things?
Okay, so oil theft has been going on for a long time. The only reason it's not been addressed is that there's government complicity in it. And so, like many things, we have a security challenge. And that security challenge is festered by the fact that we don't have actively engaged young people. The idleness, as they say, is the workhouse of the devil, and these people ultimately do what they have to do. And if I post a soldier to the Niger Delta and he has the opportunity of taking home several $1,000s, he's probably going to jump at it. And the option is, if he doesn't take home several $1,000s, then he runs the risk of going into direct confrontation with the boys who have equipment that far exceeds whatever he has. So it's a compromise that can be addressed if there's a global, very aggressive approach to it. There isn't one.
So in that context, is it a bad idea to be winding down the little that's been done for them, which is the amnesty program?
Of course it's a bad idea. The amnesty program needs to be managed. But I have to say this, and that's for those of us that were part of the foundation. We were the technical committee, Niger Delta Technical Committee, that suggested the amnesty program. It wasn't about just paying people endlessly. It was about moving them from that to something else. But of course, we've got a conveyor belt, and we see it in the universities now, where you move people out of university, they go to their youth service, and then there are no jobs for them. So until you have a government and a people, and I'm not just talking about federal, but even state governments that actually can create jobs for people, then ultimately we don't stand a chance, which is why, of course, I'm supporting people like Tonye Cole, because we need people who can create jobs.
That's the APC governorship candidate.
The fact that he's APC is not the issue. But he's a candidate.
I thought I should point that out.
I know. He's a candidate.
In Rivers State.
Yeah, he's a candidate, and I'm supporting him because we need people who can create jobs. 220 million people. By 2050, we're going to be the third largest country in the world. What jobs are these people going to do? At what point are we going to get a government or governments that can actually create the environment for businesses to thrive? It's a crisis, and it's about to happen, and Nigerians need to do something about it, and that's why 2023 election is critical, very critical.
Well, Tonye, I want to thank you very much indeed. It's always brilliant talking with you. Tonye Princewill is a businessman, politician, and philanthropist. Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.